So you've found somewhere to stay in your flat, apartment, or whatever you've decided. Maybe you've even decided to stay in a hotel in a locality because, again, depending what you're looking for, they can be very cost effective also. If you're going down the hotel route or the pension house, again, it depends whereabouts in the Philippines. If you go to one of the main holiday areas, like in the south of Bohol and Panguil Islands, then you're going to be paying a lot of money. Western prices, 60, 70 pounds or $100 a night for a hotel. If you're in more of a rural area, particularly north of Bohol, like we are in Taliban, then you'll find hotels, one or two. Really, there's not that many. In fact, I think it's a total of about 4 pension houses in the area. None of them have restaurants, except one has a small cafe type affair. But you'll pay anything from £10 a night to about £18 a night in these places, and they're acceptable. They're clean, they're air conditioned. They're tidy, they're comfortable. So if you're here for short term, then obviously that's what I would recommend you do. You can go out and find something to eat in some of the small cafes and stuff, but be warned that in the areas of the remote areas, like the north of Bohol, then there are very few limited choices of where to eat. There's a couple of national chains that have only just recently opened in Taliban, and that's the famous Jollibee, and also now Chowking opened actually today. But you will find some small cafes, and you'll generally pay about 200 to 500 pesos for a main course. And that'll be including the rice, usually that price. They don't charge over the top for a beer either. You'll pay maybe 90 pesos, £1.40, £1.20 for a large bottle, that's a litre bottle, about $170. So you can survive and live quite cheaply. If you go to the south, obviously you could find hotels that are much cheaper than the 70 to 100 a night, but you'll struggle. You'll still be paying 40, 50 pounds a night, maybe $70. But your choice of food will be just about anything you want. Western food, Eastern food, anything. Again, your prices you'll pay will be relatively good for the national chain type stuff like Jollibee. You'll also find other places that do the local sort of food, again reasonably priced. But it's like anywhere, you can pay what you want for food. Be warned though that KFC, which they have in the Philippines, and McDonald's, is not the McDonald's and KFC that we know. They've catered for the Eastern sort of market and clientele. I was gobsmacked, totally amazed in Cebu City that we went to a McDonald's and they only had, out of the 30 or 40 items on the menu, they only had one burger. The rest was spaghetti, just like a sort of a restaurant type thing. Mushroom soup is another big thing that they seem to have switched on to here. And the same with, you go to KFC. KFC seem to try to fit into a market niche that isn't already covered by Jollibee. Basically, Jollibee is like the KFC of the Philippines. Difference being they specialise with spaghetti with a sweet tomato sauce as well as the chicken. But the KFC then seem to be lost on what they would do, because in effect they would be just copying what Jollibee do. So they tend to do chicken, but with some very strange items on the menu, like mashed potato and cream and mushroom soup. Just they seem to be trying to be different in my mind. So just be warned that that is one thing that you have to watch out for. So keep watching and we'll start covering some of the other interesting items about eating in the Philippines.
Get a strong one.
Strong what? These? The original. What's the strong one then? Classic. Not that one.
I don't like it. Asa, dito dito.
This is the weird thing with eggs. You put them in a little container that they come in, so they take them out and put them in a plastic bag. So don't get what? Something like that. It's strange. Why take them out of a good box that keeps them together? Okay, so moving on to your self-catering scenario where you've got your own apartment and you've bought a stove, which in the UK we would call a camping gas stove, because there's no mains gas here. It's all Cala type gas, bottled gas. So you've bought one of those and your pots and pans, etc. So you want to go to the local supermarket now to find out, what you can buy. So the first thing to do is completely forget about trying to cook a Western diet. You might get some similar things you could do, but if you don't like, or if you only like Western food and you cannot eat or don't want to eat anything different, don't come to the Philippines. Really, just don't come. You're crazy. If you're traveling to the Far East and the eastern part of the world and you only like your home food and you're fussy, forget it. You're wasting your time. So you'll go to the local supermarket. They look very similar to the supermarkets in the UK. Again, and the US, it depends where you are. Being in Taliban in the north, it's a much smaller affair. It's a small town, so the supermarket is sort of comparable. So there's a very restricted choice on a lot of things. If you go to the south, you will find that the supermarket and the malls are huge. They really are. Much better than I've seen in a lot of the UK as far as size goes. And there will be more choice. You can get some Western products, but obviously you'll pay the price for those. But, excuse me, itchy nose. So one thing to be aware of is the choice of vegetables is extremely limited compared to what you get in the US and the UK. I thought I was going to find an abundance of red, green, yellow peppers, for instance, because it's a hot country and I thought that's where they grow well. Butternut squash, capsicums, of course, which are what the red and green peppers are called in the States. This type of thing I thought I would find in abundance. I didn't expect to find things like we find in the UK. We eat in the UK a lot: parsnips, turnips, Brussels sprouts, the proper dark green cabbage, etc. Doesn't exist. You won't find it. You will find carrots. You will find like French beans, and you'll find the big long Thai beans, which are quite nice as well. You will find cabbage. It's more of a white type cabbage, but when boiled up, does taste normally as you'd expect cabbage to taste like. The only problem is you'll also find potato, sweet potato, but not the orangey ones that I've seen in the UK and US. They're very sort of white and powdery, but they're still nice. They're still okay. You'll find what we call normal potatoes, but not many, because the staple diet here, of course, is rice. Now, the crazy thing is that at home I will pay about £1, £1.20 for maybe a kilogram of potatoes, which is probably $1.70 for £2 of potato, 2.2 pounds. Over here, for that price, I will get 2 potatoes. Yeah, you've heard me, 2 potatoes wrapped in cellophane. And the same goes for carrots. At home, we'll pay 60, 70 pence for a kilogram, 2 pounds of carrot. I'm paying that for 2 carrots, again cellophane wrapped, because they're all imported from China, Thailand, Far East, etc. Same goes for grapes. The grapes are actually all brought in from the States, they're flown in from the States, so they're about £6 or £7 a kilo, or $10 for 2 pounds. Oranges, apples, etc., the same. They're either imported from the States, some from Australia. So be warned that you're very restricted on your fruit and veg, and I eat a lot of that when I'm in the UK. So there was a big change in my diet. Yeah, and I can adapt to that, and I did, and have done. But you go through phases of craving for some of the things that you used to eat a lot. So just be warned, but it's the price of the fruit and veg, even when you get it, is expensive. The cabbage is a reasonable price, comparable, or if not cheaper than the UK and the US. Same with the green beans, etc. But in general, everything else on the fruit and veg side is more expensive. I can buy, a kilogram, 2 pounds of apples for £1. Here I can get like 2 or 3 apples for that price. So you have to adapt your diet to what's available, and it's possible because you start finding other things that you like. But one thing they do a lot here, and it's very popular, a lot of canned and tinned stuff. Corned beef is a big one, spam is a big one, processed ham, a lot of processed meats. In lots of ways, the only way I can consider it or compare it, it's a bit like I remember when I was a kid eating in the 70s in the UK, that everything was tins of spam and corned beef and processed meats, as the standard sort of food. You don't get a delicatessen here, for instance, with all fresh cuts of ham and beef and salami and things like that. It doesn't exist. You get fresh meat, but it's mostly chicken and pork. There is some beef, and again, all the cuts of the meat are different to what you'd expect in the US and UK. I come to the conclusion they don't actually cut the meat. They get a huge great cleaver or machete and just chop it into pieces, because you just get literally where we get chicken thighs, skin deboned, just ready to fry up as a big piece of meat. Here you just get the thigh that's been chopped up with a cleaver with all the bones and everything else included. So you have to adapt your diet, you have to adapt what you cook. It's very difficult to get a lot of different cooking sauces or anything like this, so nearly everything, what I can gather in the standard Philippine diet, has soy sauce and garlic with it, and it's standard basically on just about everything, and some with ginger. So the diet is completely different, and you can find and you can start adapting to get some different stuff. I tried making custard, if you've watched one of my videos from the other day, which turned out to be a bit of a disaster, but that's through more of a lack of experience. One thing I shall bring back from the UK when I come again later in this year is going to be custard powder. You soon start making a note of things that you really do want when you're here. You can get like baked beans, but they're the American version, so it's pork and beans, which I've always still tried finding the pork in the beans. You guys in the US will probably be used to what they mean by pork and beans. I was expecting little bits of sausage or little bits of pork that you could physically see in the beans, but it just seems to be beans, bigger beans as well, but with the tomato sauce or tomato sauce. So yeah, all I will say is that you can eat relatively cheaply. Like I say, if you go out to eat, if you go to the Jollibee, the takeaways, for two of you, it will probably cost about 400 tops, and that's going large with the Coke. You can get fries as well if you wanted, but you'll always get rice. You know, as the standard with it, everything has rice. So 300-400 is about £6 for two of you, and it will fill you up. The portions aren't as big as you would get in the States, that's for sure. So just bear that in mind also. But you know, again, you're only paying about $8, so which is a fair price. But also, if you're catering for yourself, you can cater for a relatively cheap price. We tend to buy a lot of extras all the time. You know what it's like. You go in for a few bits and pieces and end up spending, you know, like 15 quid, $20 type thing on lots of things that you just saw and you caught your eye. I've got a bit of a, you know, liking here for the peeled pomelo, which is like a fruit which is a cross between like a grapefruit and orange, you know, quite large with a taste, a mixture of everything, to be honest. But they're costing me like, you know, for the small pack, about £1 or, you know, $1.20, $1.30 every time we go in. But you could, two of you could eat quite well with meat and rice, with a little tiny bit of veg with it, for about, you know, £4, £5 a day, you know, maybe $7-8. You'll buy a beer here in the supermarket for you know, around about sort of 40, a small can, small can this is, about 40 pence or, you know, 60 cents. If you buy the stronger stuff like brandy, you will pay. Sorry, I went low back then. I don't know if you noticed. If you buy brandy here, I bought a quarter bottle of brandy for 36 pence or about 50 cents. You can buy gin here. I bought some pink gin. That cost me 70 pence for a half bottle. You know, so if you're a drinker, then as far as the spirits go, you're in heaven. If you only want to drink brandy, the local rum, which is quite nice, or even some of the imported rum is a good price, or gin. That's the three main spirits. You can get just about any other alcohol you want, Californian wines, French wines, everything. You know, all the different spirits like Desano and Cointreau, etc. You can buy it all, but you'll pay a lot higher price. But it still works out cheaper than in the UK, because the UK has such a high tax on alcohol. I can buy a litre bottle of you know, Desano for around about £10-11. I think it's about £22 at home, something crazy. And California Red, the ones that I know that we get in the UK, I can buy here, and they'll only cost me £6-7, which is comparable price to the UK. So it's not a big deal. But anyway, hope this has been useful as far as the cost of food goes and where to eat and what to be aware of. But again, please don't be fussy, because you won't eat anything. We go to the local fish market regularly, and that is one thing that's a lot cheaper. I go for the biggest shrimp or prawns I can find, and they're usually sort of, you know, this long, you know, six inches or so, and we're paying for a kilo. We're paying about 350 pesos, which is about £6 a kilo. The same with the local crab. If you buy the local fish called bangus, which is like a bit very much reminds of a mullet, so it's very bony fish, but most of the fish here has got a lot of bones and is also very oily type fish like tuna, but you can buy all of it for a very cheap price compared to the UK particularly, and the US. So, you know, yes, overall I would say you can eat a lot cheaper here but you have to be prepared that you won't eat the same food that you would eat in your home country. You have to adapt. My sort of recommendation is that you bring some of the things every time you visit that you couldn't do without if you're here living or self-catering, and you'll soon suss that out. Anyway, hope the video has been useful. Please like and subscribe, and you'll get notified of the next videos. So there's some hot news coming up soon as well. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye.